Hey guys, it's Kelly here and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to a digital art drawing. I don't think I've ever uploaded one of these before on my channel, but I had this recording of this drawing that I did of my original character Jessica, and I really like how it turned out, so I decided to just edit it and post it. I am sorry if the video is a bit too sped up. I did actually draw 3 drawings, so technically it's 3 in 1, so I had to speed it up quite a bit so that I can fit it into one video that is not way too long. It is still too long. It's about 20 something to 30 minutes, but I hope that my rambling and my explanation and some tips and tricks for Photoshop drawing are gonna keep you interested. If not, you can just skip forward to see how it goes, or you can just check out my Instagram and see the finished version. For the first part of this video, while I'm sketching and while I'm doing the line art, I'm going to tell you a few tips and tricks that I use in order to simplify digital drawing for myself. And actually, these are not new. I'm sure that if you've seen other artists do digital speed paintings, you've seen them use them as well. The first one is that I use multiple sketch layers. So you saw me do a first very rough sketch layer just to figure out the shapes, how my character stands in the on the page, and basically just get the overall proportions of it. Right now, what I am doing is I am using the free transform tool in order to first of all flip my character, because it is always very important to flip your canvas. That is a trick that is very useful in digital drawing, because your eye as you draw gets very used to whatever you've drawn, and flipping it makes your eye see the differences and see the mistakes that you've made that otherwise you would have missed, just because your eye and your brain are used to seeing what it is and they're kind of glossing over the mistakes. Another trick to use the free transform tool for is to wrap your sketch or just warp it if it seems crooked or it seems a little out of balance, I guess. You can kind of warp it in order to make it seem, well, more right, I guess. And those are the 2 main ones that I use frequently, especially while sketching, because if you mess up in the sketch and you don't fix it in the beginning, you are going to you're not going to be able to fix it later on when the line art is ready and when you've started coloring already. So be sure to to do these tips and tricks and figure out exactly how you want your sketch to work and how you want it to look. And if you do see any mistakes, make sure you fix them in the beginning, because as I said, you're not going to be able to in the future. Now, in terms of line art, I'm still experimenting a lot. I used to use a textured brush that looked like a pencil in some way. It had a texture that looked like a pencil, but I do love the way that it turned out, but that was for the way that I used to shade my characters. I don't shade them this way anymore, so it just kind of doesn't work, because the texture kind of gets in the way of the very sharp shadows and the very cel shaded style that I currently shade in. So now I'm using just a very normal brush, just a regular one. Sometimes what I would do for the line art is I will squish the brush and make it seem like actually that's a little hard to explain, especially when English is not my first language, but you will see it further on in the video. When I start coloring, I squish the brush a little bit and it gives it a pointed edge in some way. And that's very helpful for doing line art. It is very helpful to have a tablet with pen pressure, because you can actually use that to your advantage and create thicker lines where you want to, and thinner where, for instance, not a lot of parts of your character meet. Now, in terms of line art, I don't do too much. I usually perfect the line art a little bit more than this. At first, I was going for a more sketchy look, so I didn't want my line art to be perfect. But somewhere along the second or third drawing, I kind of changed directions. That actually happens quite a bit with me, especially. So I started out doing them very sketchy and very rough, and then I did the other one a lot more cleaner and I had to go back to this one and clean up the liner a little bit, but that, you know, that happens. Sometimes you like it when it's more sketchy, sometimes you don't. I personally love when there's sketchy, colored sketchy art. That's one of my favorite things. Just the sketchiness, it makes it look so authentic and worked on, but also effortless. And I'm really struggling to get exactly that look. I have a friend that draws very sketchily, and I love how his art turns out. When I do it, of course, I go in and start refining it, and I erase some here, erase them there, and the whole sketchiness and the vibe just goes away. I'm just like that. I'm a perfectionist and I can't let go, and it's really annoying, but I am trying. So as I said, I started off with a sketchy line art, but ended up cleaning it up a bit. And for the usually a trick that I would do for the line art is I would thicken up some of the lines where there's supposed to be shadow, so it has a very comic book line art type of feel. And I didn't do this here, I think I just forgot, but that is something that I do a lot, especially in my traditional drawings. And I have done it in the digital one. I don't know why I didn't here. I guess I literally just forgot. So it's very, very thin lines. I was before drawn more to the thicker ones, and because I don't feel very confident with my drawings, the thick lines kind of hide any mistakes that you might have, and they avert the eyes of the person who's looking at your art. So that's another trick if you want to use thicker lines. That kind of steers the way away from all of your mistakes. Now, I personally like my art with thinner lines. I think it looks cleaner and softer, but I would at times go in and thicken up certain spots where the light doesn't hit, or where there's I don't know how should I call it, where the, say, face meets the shoulders, and there's supposed to be like a shadow there. Instead of drawing an actual shadow, you can just thicken up the lines a little bit, and it gives the impression that that is darker there. Now, I have, as I said, I have 3 drawings of the same character. So I have this one that is a full body shot, and initially I was going to do another 2 full bodies right next to each other in different poses, but I decided not to do that. And I do really like when there's, say, a sketchbook, and on the sketchbook there's one full body of a character, and then there's one portrait, and one that's kind of cropped a little bit. And I love how that looks on the page, and I decided to do that basically here. So this is kind of like my digital sketchbook, and I created this one that is a full body shot of my character, one where she's just kind of standing and it's cropped. She's got her hands in her pockets, very nonchalant and kind of effortless. And on the bottom, one where she is lighting up a cigarette that is in profile. I really love drawing girls in profiles. I have a lot of drawings of girls just in profile. I don't know why, it's just something that I've drawn ever since I was a child. I love drawing noses in profile for some reason, and like taking into consideration what I just showed you, naturally it's safe to guess that that one, the third one, is my favorite. So the one where she's lighting up a cigarette is my favorite drawing of all the 3, and I guess maybe it's not very child friendly, I guess, showing a character lighting up a cigarette. I don't know, it's something completely normal, I think, but I don't know. Oh man, I never thought about that. What if people have a problem? Well, if you have a problem with that, I am sorry. This is in no way trying to promote smoking. I myself am not a smoker. I am completely against smoking in public places, but also absolutely every single person around me who is close to me is a smoker. So my parents, my boyfriend, my friends, all of them. So, you know, I can't really say that I'm completely against it. I just think that people can do whatever they want. It's their bodies, and as long as it doesn't bother anyone else and they're not in a position where it hurts anybody else, I think it's fine. But again, I guess that's just my opinion. If you are bothered by the drawing of my character smoking, then I'm sorry that it bothered you, and you're welcome to just skip over the last drawing, or the video altogether, I guess. But yeah, so after I do the sketching and the line art, I go into doing the colors. And the first thing I do is add a solid color first in the background, just so I can see what the hell I'm doing. And that's basically that's usually this color that you see. It's a very grayish, warmish kind of color. It's neither light nor dark, so that if I use lighter colors I can see them, and if I see darker colors I can see them. So go for a very muted color like I did here, and add a little bit of warmth, either warmth or coldness into it, just so you can see all of the colors that you use. The next thing that I do is add a solid layer under my line art that is just the shape of my character, and that is so I can use it as a clipping mask and create all of the colors and shading on top of it. And rather than just deleting them from the sides where I went over the lines, it only shows up where this solid colored layer is. So yeah, I guess we're into the coloring now. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my character. So this is a original character that I developed when I was in, it was either 8th or 9th grade. And so that was, how old was I? I was 15. I am 27 now, so yeah, that's 12 years ago. I created this character along with 2 others, and they're part of a story that I have not developed in any way, shape, or form. I just have in my head, and I've been trying really hard to get pieces of it out, at least the character development out, just because I do really want to create either a comic book or just a web story or some sort of these characters and their story. As I said, I have it in my head, I just haven't exactly drawn anything concerning it, but I am hoping, and as I develop my channel here on YouTube, I am hoping to just get more time and more motivation to do so, and maybe trying them would help me develop it more. Maybe anyone watching has some opinions or ideas and they would like to help me develop it all together. But basically, I'm not going to tell you what the story is all that much. I'm just going to go through my characters. This one, her name is Jessica, and she's very poised. She's 16, I think, or 17 years old. So they're all in high school. She is one of 3 girls from my story, one of 3 main girls. And she's honestly my favorite. And she wasn't supposed to be, because she's not the main character. She's kind of a secondary character, but I loved her from the moment I developed her, and from all of my characters, she's the one that changed the least in terms of character design. I just basically changed the way that she wore her hair, and that's all, I guess, because when you draw and start figuring out certain characters and stories and developing them when you're very young, you don't have a lot of critical thinking. You don't know a lot of things about creating a story or a world or designing characters. So I really wanted to create the comic book, and I actually have a few pages drawn, but they're from way back when I developed them at first, and of course the story has changed quite a bit from then. The story kind of grew up alongside with me, and so did the characters. In the beginning, they all shared a very similar face and very similar body type, because of course I grew up watching anime and manga, and I fell into the same face syndrome, and they were developed at first as very manga-like characters, and they looked very manga-like. I do believe that some people will find the style that I currently have very anime or manga-like, but I personally think that I managed to make it a little bit different, a bit more cartoony rather than manga inspired. At least I'm trying to. And the thing that I would do most was change their body types and their face features. So for Jessica, she has a heart-shaped face, and a very long, thin body. She's very womanly, I guess that's the word, because she was a ballerina when she was younger, and that's part of her story. When she was very young, she lived with her mother. They were a bit wealthy, and her mother pressured her to do a lot of things that would make her very poised, elegant, and that would not embarrass her or her family. And ballet was something that she wanted her daughter to do. So as she was growing up, she wasn't really feeling the ballet, and also her relationship with her mom became very toxic and not very good. So as a sort of rebellion against her mom, she dropped out of ballet and she picked up smoking, and she decided to do something that's completely different and the polar opposite from ballet, and something that was completely not poised and not elegant, just so she could anger her mom. And in young Jessica's mind, for her, that would be boxing. So at the current state of my story, she is actually a boxer, and I do think I picked kickboxing, but I might be wrong. Yeah, I think I'm wrong. I have a few drawings of her with boxing gloves and no helmet, so I guess just regular boxing. And naturally, her mom was pissed about this, and they're not on very good terms. I do believe that right now, in the current state of my story that is in my mind, they are not speaking and they're not even living together. But Jessica is a very, very beautiful girl. She's considered naturally pretty, and she has a naturally beautiful body. So she is, well, basically the it girl if she were a better character, because in terms of her herself and her attitude, she's not very likable. People really dislike her. She's kind of mean, snobby, and she doesn't talk to people. She has only one very close friend, and she sticks to her like glue. They both are inseparable. And her friend, her name is Miley. She is the other character from my story. So they have been best friends since they were kids. And in the beginning, Jess was very shy, and she had a hard time making friends because she grew up wealthy, and kids would kind of make fun of her because her mother had some issues, which I guess we'll get into in the future. But for now, just, I'm gonna leave you with just that. So the kids would be mean to her, and she would not have any friends until Miley moved in. I still haven't decided whether I want her name to be pronounced Millie or Miley, because I really don't know how to spell it. I wanted to begin, in the beginning I called her Millie, now I call her Miley. I guess maybe I would even change her name altogether as I develop the story, but we'll see. You'll see her in the future, so if you want, you can answer a poll which you prefer, or whether it's pronounced Millie or Miley. So anyway, I digress. The two became very close friends when they were younger. Millie is... Okay, I'm gonna call her M, because this is getting ridiculous. So M was a lot more outspoken. She was also shy, but she didn't know anybody, and she's very geeky, and it's very hard for her to find people that like her same interests. So when she met Jessica, she kind of made her friend, and because she didn't have that many friends, Millie didn't have that much competition, and that's kind of why she stuck with Jess, because she thought that it would be a lot more easy to make friends with somebody who doesn't have a lot of friends. And she started sharing her interests. It turned out that Jess has very similar interests in terms of art, because Millie likes all art and video games, and because Jess would stay home a lot because she didn't have any friends to go out with, they would play video games together. So they developed their interests kind of in the same way, and just in the same realm, I suppose. And that's when they become friends, and since then they go absolutely everywhere together, and Jess does not really let any other people get into their little group. She gets a little bit jealous, and she doesn't like it when other people try to take advantage of Millie, because she's very sweet and very nice, and she's very helping and a little bit naive. So Jess, on the other hand, she's the complete opposite. She's very distrustful, and she basically thinks the worst of people upon meeting them. So she helps her avoid people who would take advantage of her. And on the other hand, Millie kind of helps her be nicer or more approachable. So just being the beauty queen that she is, she actually does not have a lot of suitors because she's kind of mean and unapproachable, as I mentioned. And Millie, on the other hand, does not consider herself looking the best. She doesn't like herself very much. Her self-esteem is pretty low, so she would get jealous of guys liking Jessica more. For instance, guys that Millie has a crush on, they usually fall for Jess because she's just naturally beautiful and she's a beauty queen, and that would make Millie feel very bad about herself. So when they were kids, they struck a pact, and basically the pact was neither of them will get a boyfriend until they both have the suitor. They both have a suitor, so they can both have a boyfriend. So unless they both have a boyfriend, neither of them can have a boyfriend. And I know that's really ridiculous, but as kids, we used to do stuff like that, and as we grow up, we realize how ridiculous that is. But they made that back when they were like 10 or 11, so I think it stands the idea and the time period that they were in. And yeah, things definitely change along in the story, but that's what their pact initially was. And just, I don't know if I should mention this. I guess maybe I can, but it's gonna be a little bit of a spoiler. But it is also my story, so I don't know. I'm gonna save this for another episode. Anyway, in terms of a personality, Jess is, as I mentioned, a bit stuck up and a little rude and mean. She doesn't let people get close to her and doesn't let people get close to Millie either, because she gets a little bit jealous. The main character of my story, her name is Emily, and she comes into town and things happen and the three girls start hanging out a little bit because of the things that happened, and a little bit because Millie really wants another friend in their midst. So Millie kind of befriends her because she thinks that maybe Jess needs another friend, not just her. So the three girls start hanging out a lot. Now, in the beginning, Jess is very unsure of Emily, and she doesn't trust her. She also doesn't like it when Millie spends a lot of time with her, but eventually she warms up to her, and she becomes very close to her, even probably closer on a deeper level than she ever was with Millie. And that's basically the beginning of the story. In terms of the art that you're seeing right now, because we are nearing the end of the video, not very much, but we are kind of there. Another thing that I wanted to mention for coloring is when you add the shading, what I do is I add it very messily, and I just kind of sketch out where I want the shadows to be, and once I add it as a messy layer on top, I go in with the eraser and try to neaten it up a bit. And that really helps, especially when you have some folds and you want to bring out some highlights on the face, for instance. And it makes it a lot easier than just trying to be perfect with the brush. For some reason, being more perfect with the eraser is easier for me. So that's one trick that I have for you. Another trick that I have is for the hair, and that is when you create the shading and the highlights in the hair. A very cool and neat trick that I have found to love doing lately is to add some strands of hair, and I add them on top of the line art as well, so they they're more visible and they're not constrained by the line art, and that just makes the hair look so beautiful. And it makes it look, I don't even want to say realistic, but it does kind of help it have a little bit more volume, and it's really cool. I add usually some strands with the base color, and even in the shadows and the highlights, and especially the strands around the top of the head where you usually get the baby hairs, because let's face it, we all have some baby hairs on top of our head that just won't listen to reason. And also strands around the face really help bring the hair a lot more into the character and make it look a little bit more connected and cohesive. Another thing that I usually do is add a rim light. I did not do this here, but I used to do it a lot in my character designs. For this one, I don't think it was needed because all three drawings are kind of on the same page, and the rim lighting is what I use for when I have one main piece and, for instance, a couple of sketches that are not fully colored or fully finished, so that one of them will stand out with the rim light and the full color and the rest will seem more sketchy. Now, you're welcome to do that. I feel like that really amps up your drawing. That makes it look so put together and so nice. So if you ever want to do that, feel free to try it out. I usually go for a very cyan kind of color. Sometimes I use yellow too, but the cyan really gives it something. And also take into consideration the colors that you have on your character, because for instance, I right now have a lot of purple, and even the red in her hair is purplish. So if I were to do a rim light right now on this character, I would either make it like an orangey yellow or actually amp up the purple and make it purple or magenta. Of course, I'm saying that without actually trying it, so don't quote me on that. Maybe magenta highlight will look really horrible, but definitely an orangey or a yellowish yellow will look really good because it's an opposite for the purple. Now, just has purple eyes because I like it, first of all, and I still haven't decided whether they are real or if she's wearing lenses. I have a few drawings of her when she's a kid, and she has purple eyes as well as a kid, and you know, it's kind of a magical universe. I'm not gonna say more than that, but it's not exactly magic, but let's just say that they have sort of superpowers. So the yellow eyes are kind of the least of your problems if you think that this is just a basic schoolgirl story. I really like the way that the purple eyes look with the reddish hair. That I just love how it turns out. And I think I'm gonna stick with the fact that it's just, you know, a magical universe and purple eyes are completely normal for a character. You know, in manga and anime, they have purple hair and pink hair, and they act like that's completely normal, and they didn't dye their hair, so they're like green hairs from when they're born, and you see like anime babies with green hair. So I'm gonna stick to it, and I'm gonna just say that this is exactly that. She was born with purple eyes, and she's gonna stay with purple eyes, and those are not lenses. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm just adding some finishing details, some finishing shading, and some highlights in the eyes that also really help the character look alive after you're done. So definitely recommend doing that. I love putting a highlight in the eye, sometimes a few even. And that's basically it for the drawing and the video. Hopefully I will do some more, and I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the story and the characters as well. Feel free to let me know how you feel about the story in this type of video, because I would really love to hear your opinion and maybe about the story. And if you want to see any other of my characters, you can also check my Instagram. I have a few art pieces there of Jess and other characters as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you see and would like to see more. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!